So if you pay attention to news or to reports coming out of the government, you may be familiar with the claim that it requires approximately $250,000 to raise a child from infancy up to the age of 18. That seems to be a daunting burden for new families. So should we have kids? That is a question. And this is a question that my son-in-law, Ryan, who is a new dad, and I had down in Boise when I was down there visiting he and my daughter recently. I think you will find this discussion interesting. It occurs in two parts. The first part talks about the affordability of children. The second part talks about finances kind of in the broader scope of life. And Ryan is very well qualified to talk about this. He runs a successful financial management business and has good insight on finances for those who are considering kids, have kids, or are just retiring. So I hope you enjoy this conversation.
I'm all in. Push your chips to the middle. I'm all in. For the cards as they may. I'm all in. Push your chips to the middle. I'm all in. Go broke or get paid.
Welcome back to Parenting for the Long Run. You may notice that I'm in a different environment. I'm at the office of my son-in-law, Ryan, and Amicis. Is that right?
Works
No.
good for
How
him?
do you say it?
Amici.
Amici. So this is reminiscent of when I was teaching in Peru, and I'm going through the roll, and there's this, I read, Carolina. And so I say, Carolina, whatever her last name was, I don't know. And she goes, no, Carolina. And I said, oh, okay, Carolina. And she goes, no, Carolina. And I said, okay, Carolina. She goes, no, I'm finally, I bet you by the end of the semester, I get it. I'm not sure I ever did, but I mean, I heard exactly what I thought I was saying, but it was not what she thought I was saying. At any rate, so we are at his office. He has a business, Christian Wealth Management. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so he's interested in the topic of, obviously, family finances. And that relates to a topic that I'm interested in, which is people's perspective on the cost of raising kids. And so we're going to talk about the intersection of those two topics here. But before we go any further, let's say a quick prayer and then we'll jump into this topic. Lord, I thank you for the opportunity to meet with Ryan and talk about this, and pray that our conversation would be productive and you would give us insight and that it would be helpful to those who listen. Amen. All right, so I'm going to let Ryan kind of give the framework for our discussion, at least the beginning parts of it, and then we'll move on.
I think some helpful context for me to remember is that I grew up in Silicon Valley, where there's a lot of tech jobs that pay handsomely. And why that's interesting to me is while I live in Boise, Idaho now, I have most of my friends and family have stayed there, and they're all making pretty good money relatively, and there seems to be an underlying concern on what's the financial impact of a growing family. Some people have chosen not to have families because of the cost. But if you just look from the outside in, you think financially, you seem like you're doing okay. So it's interesting to me to think through is how big of an obstacle is finances to somebody deciding to have a family, and is it going to be more meaningful for somebody to just decide, essentially, screw this obstacle, I'm just going to do it anyways, and trust for God's provision? You mentioned that there was research that showed the cost of raising a kid.
So the USDA typically does a survey of the cost of raising a child from like 0 to 17, so not including college expenses. And the most recent one that I found came out in 2017, and they said $248,000, I think, something like that. Let's just round up, just because we can. $250,000 to raise a child from 0 to age 17 when they graduate from high school and presumably move out of the house. Maybe not. Maybe, and so they admit there may be more expense if you decide you're going to take on the expense of college after that. And the average price annual tuition at a public university is like $9,500, and in a private it's north of 30,000. So you could easily rack up, if you pay for the college and send them to a private school, anywhere from $350,000 to $400,000.
Yeah.
At the end of that, again, assuming that you pay for all that.
It's interesting, yeah, because a piece of research that I found, and it was listed on Lending Tree, it was from 2025. It said the cost was $303,000 from 0 to 18. I liked comparing that to the expected income for somebody over the course of their life, which was like 1.7 million. And so just on like paper-wise, if you put the numbers on paper, you would assume that, yeah, there's a huge financial cost to having a kid. But then you're lonely. So
lonely.
I want to know.
That's right. I mean, I do not want to be conspiratorial, but there does seem to be kind of a bias built into those numbers that is trying to discourage people against having kids. When you start looking at some of the assumptions underlying the analysis, you see like, okay, well, a big portion of the expense is housing. And so you got to have you have a kid, you have to add a bedroom. You have another kid, you have to have another bedroom. If you have 3 kids, do you have to add another bedroom? Well, historically, no. I'll send a video to Ryan, and I'll put it up on mine as well. It shows a house in Haines, Oregon. I say house, loosely speaking. It's a log cabin, and I stepped it off. I think it was like 20 feet. It might have been 25 feet by 30 feet. Let's just say it was 30 by 30. It was not 30 by 30, but that would be 900 square feet, right? The couple who moved into the Baker Valley and lived in that house raised 12 kids in that house. I'm not advocating that, but I'm just saying that modern perspective on what constitutes necessity for raising kids is really out of sync with what existed for millennia.
Yeah. That reminds me of, there's this coffee shop we love called Slow by Slow downtown.
They serve decaf. But go ahead.
They do? What are you talking about?
Get it? Slow by slow? That's a joke. Joke coming.
Yeah, when you drink Slow by Slow, you're slow too. So, but there's recently, actually, they've been remodeling their space for a long time, but they've recently expanded. So they have like this downstairs area, which is small, and they have a pretty big seating area upstairs. I went on a morning that it was a really beautiful morning. I didn't have any meetings, so I went early to read and see if I can write some stuff. And I grabbed my coffee. It was like congested in the downstairs area where you order your coffee. I grab it. I'm thinking I need to go upstairs to get some space. And as I walk upstairs, it's closed. So I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense on why it's so busy down here. And I walk downstairs. I'm like, okay, well, I'm here to write. So I guess I have to ask somebody if I could sit at their table. And I had asked somebody if they could sit at their table with them. They said yes. And while I was there, I remember a lady came to me and she was like, do you mind if we share this table with you too? And she was like, Euro style, because in Europe everything's pretty close to. And it just made me reflect on, you will use whatever space you have. It's like,
Right.
just like if you make this building huge, we'll figure out a reason to fill every corner. But if you get rid of excess space, people will solve for the problem you give them. Mm-hmm. So in the same way, like I see it over and over again, like when somebody has more kids, they think I need a bigger house. Right.
Yeah, and sometimes you may need a bigger house, right? But oftentimes you don't.
Yeah. So you have 10 kids?
I have 10 kids. My wife and I have 10 kids.
So how did you guys decide housing situations as your family was continuing to grow?
I got out of graduate school, and I always say that it was like there was this timeline going, our bank account and my graduation date were, it was, we weren't sure which one was going to hit zero first. But I graduated and we had very little money.
How many kids did you have when you graduated?
And at the time we had 1, 2, 3, 4, we had four kids. And so we're looking for a place to live, Boulder, Colorado, very expensive. And this house came available up in the mountains. This house had been on the tax records in like 1864 or something. I mean, it was made out of stone, field stones. And you could tell the guy, he made a building about probably 15 by 20 maybe, something like that. And then, he got some money and he broke out a wall and he added on a dining room or whatever it was. And then he broke out another wall and added a bedroom. And so the whole thing was probably, it was less than 1,000 square feet, I think, if you, maybe that, yeah, it had an upstairs. But by the time we moved out of there, we had 6 kids and they all slept up in the attic area. And the first year we moved in, I had gotten on the way to check this place out. I bought a pellet stove at a yard sale, and we used that pellet stove. That was our sole source of heat. And I did not realize how used a person could get to being cold. The kids would get up in the morning and they'd rush downstairs and stand in front of that pellet stove, and they would dress and they'd take turns. The girls would get dressed while the guys were under the covers, and then the guys would go get dressed. But the kids have very fond memories of that. We moved back to Virginia. I built a house back there. It probably had 3,000 square feet. We had 2 bedrooms upstairs and big bedrooms, and each had its own bath. And our kids really enjoyed that. We had, at that time, 4 girls and 4 boys. And then we moved back to Oregon. And we, again, couldn't find any place to live. We found a 900 square foot double wide to live in. So 3 bedrooms. And I started building a house. It was a good size house, probably 3,000 square feet again. But while we were building that house, we had 4 girls in 1 bedroom, 4 boys in another bedroom. And then my wife and I had 2 kids in our bedroom. So it was, to say compact would be a good statement. But I think you've pointed out, conversations you've had with our kids.
Yeah.
They had fond memories of that. It's not like they felt like, oh gosh, I don't have my own bedroom. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure in the moment they probably, I think I've heard little comments of like, yeah, it would have been nice too, but as they share stories, you can tell that they're able to connect over like the challenges of their living situation in a positive way.
Right.
That I wonder, well, one is there even a 11-bedroom house in the U.S.?
Probably, but it has 22 bathrooms.
Yeah, they would have. Yeah.
So, yeah.
But yeah, you just wonder I guess I wonder the impact, the positive impact, intentional or unintentional, but just putting all of your kids in like smaller quarters. And then I'm remembering my own experience as the youngest of three. I have two older sisters, and I had my own room. And every night I tried to either move into my sister's room or my parents' room. I was just like, why am I sleeping alone? I didn't like it.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, I didn't know it in the moment, but now it's like, oh, everyone else had a partner in their room.
Right.
I was alone. Like, that's why. I don't want to sleep alone.
Yeah.
So,
And two of our daughters were living together here in Boise, and they had 2 bedrooms, but they slept in the same bed.
yeah. Hey.
Which is kind of funny because when they were both in high school, they kind of fought like cat and dogs. But it's interesting. They even there, they cared enough about each other.
Yeah. You mentioned the kids nowadays being, if you're born in the U.S. in the late 90s, like me, or early 90s, or more recently, that you might view having kids as a liability.
Right.
You mentioned that, but historically that hasn't been the case.
Yeah. So I have a degree in economics, and one of the things that they talk about in economics is the fact that kids used to be viewed as an asset because kids were a labor source and also supported you when you retired. And now we typically view kids as a liability. And I think that is kind of reflected in that all the statistics about the costs of having kids. And nobody really talks about the benefits of having kids. But I suspect that if you did research or evaluated research, you'd find that people who have kids tend to live longer and are more active later in life. I wonder if that's not the case. That would be an interesting thing to look at.
Well, how old are you?
How old am I? Old enough to be your father-in-law.
You have 10 kids.
I have 10 kids.
We don't need the research.
So I'm 65, and I think I'm pretty healthy. I'm pretty active.
You were playing basketball with us not long ago.
Yeah, I was doing that, fouling, because, to make up for my lack of basketball prowess, but that's okay. Sometimes you have to take advantage of your age.
Rachel shares a story actually of you asking her to go for a bike ride. You're going to go for a run. It was Christmas Day, and you had to end up pushing her on the bike. That's what she says.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that actually did happen. So,
and she's younger than you, obviously.
She is younger than me, yes.
So.
But yeah, I had a lot of practice pushing kids up hills on bikes as I was running. So, it kind of came naturally.
I think that's a kind of a good way to think about decisions around family is at least what I want my life to look like 20, 30, 40 years from now. If I want my life to be more substantial, if I want to set myself up to have a healthier life, what are the decisions I need to make now in order to promote a long, satisfying life? And I think that it's like the old adage, short-term pain is long-term gains. Short-term gain is long-term pain. It's like you could sure enjoy all this money now on leisure, but then you've got nothing for you later.
Right.
Or you can have the short-term pain by sacrificing some of your lifestyle now to build something more substantial, and your family gets together all the time. A little bit too much for my liking, personally, but it sets an example for me of something I want to build towards just having a family, loving them well, seeing how they enjoy each other's company. They love the Lord. What made you decide that, because you continue to have kids even though you were in college, where people might just decide to delay having kids till they're out of college. Why did you decide to keep going?
One, because Laura, I think, was not comfortable using birth control.
Okay. That could do it.
Yeah, that could have an effect. I mean, I think I'm not trying to make myself out to be super spiritual here, but I think part of the problem associated with hesitancy to have kids is a spiritual problem. That people think, gosh, what if something happens? Well, something might happen. What are you going to do about that? I mean, something could happen.
Happens, what do you mean?
Well, either to a kid, or I lose my job, or whatever the scenario is, and then we're just going to be what? They don't know, but that uncertainty creates enough anxiety that they're not willing to undertake the risk. Okay, first off, you're in the United States. What is possibly going to happen? I mean, if things go to hell in a handbasket, you're still going to eat, right? I mean, it's just, if you start thinking, oh yeah, in that regard. But, Jesus in his Sermon on the Mount, in Matthew chapter 7, chapter 6, tells us not to be anxious for tomorrow because every day has enough cares of its own. Deal with the cares of today, and then, trust God to deal with the cares of tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if you kind of make that your focus, then if you have, suddenly Laura comes out and says, hey, I'm pregnant. Oh, great. That's exciting. That should bring joy, not anxiety. And it's interesting. Our perspective on this is different than the kid's perspective. So when, after we moved to Oregon, there was a while there, probably I'd have to go back and look, 5-year period where we really were having financial difficulties. And Aubrielle was 5, maybe. And she was talking to her siblings, and I was there listening. And she said, well, my daddy can buy me anything I want. And I was thinking, I'm not so sure about that, girl. But I'm not sure where next month's rent is coming from. But the point was, she didn't want anything. She was content with what she had and enjoyed life and was confident in our ability to take care of her. And so if we had the same attitude towards our Heavenly Father that she had toward her earthly father, then really a lot of this concern would just evaporate.
Yeah. I think that's for me why I get so excited about those depressing numbers about how much it costs to raise a kid and how much somebody's likely to make, because the math doesn't look like it adds up. So it requires, in the United States of America where we live in so much comfort, it requires us to depend on God more. So to decide if you're going to have kids, the numbers don't look positive, but it requires more faith. I think there's something that I was talking to Gabriel about this actually, about how life becomes more exciting and all the vices we tend to use to suppress our challenges in life, we tend not to need them as much when we're taking risks. And they could be positive risks, risks for if we're doing drugs, but it could be risks on our faith and saying, you know what, the numbers don't look good, but I'm going to just actually finally exercise faith and decide that I'm just going to trust in God's provision. So I guess now I wonder, do you think that's part of why maybe the American Christian just doesn't seem generally as fervent as they are in other countries.
Yeah, there's a lot tied up in that. I'll just focus on the aspect of children. So I had opportunity to go teach in Peru for, I think, 5 or 6 different times. I went the first time for like 12 weeks, and then that was too long. After that, I just went for either 4 or 5 weeks in a stead. And the first time I was there, this one of my students kind of cornered me in one of our breaks on class. He was the son of a physician, and he said, "Why do you people in the United States, the only help you want to give people in third world countries is to say we shouldn't have as many children?" Yeah. And I said, well, okay, I have 10 kids. I'm not the one to tell you you shouldn't have kids, okay? But the motivation, I think, behind his question, or the irritation that he was experiencing, was they see kids as a blessing. And they enjoy having kids. And a lot of times in our society where we're like separated from children, oftentimes before we end up having kids of our own, we don't see the blessings of kids. Or if we're around people who have kids, if they don't discipline them properly, then we're like, oh gosh, who would want to have kids?
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, I think part of it, the issue is related to faith and being willing to trust God for your provision. And part of it is believing what the Bible says, that children are a gift from the Lord. Blessed is a man whose quiver is full of them. Right? We're kind of switching gears here. Yeah. People who are married have higher incomes than people who are not. Is that true? Have you done that research?
I haven't done that research.
What was your research?
It was so there was an article that I found that referenced from the National Bureau of, of Economics.
Yeah.
They have a 92-page paper that basically, the summary of it written in this article is, if you have kids, your net worth is likely to be 23% greater or more than somebody that doesn't have kids.
Yeah.
So their net worth. And it seems like the main piece is that you're more motivated to make good financial decisions, one of those practical decisions being buying a home.
Right. Well, that fits in with an article that I've referenced in earlier podcasts from the Wall Street Journal, which said that married couples have, I think I said, did I tell you 4 times?
You said 4 times.
4 times the net worth of couples that just live together, cohabitate, quote unquote. And the byline of the article was, and experts do not know why. And I was like, really? Those experts are not very smart. But I think your comment about motivation leads right into that, because I remember walking along, the University of Colorado had a research park, and we had gone for a walk in that, and Laura was walking, carrying, I think, one child or maybe pushing a child, and there are 3 other kids walking in front of me, and I'm walking behind. I'm like, I need a job, man. I need a job. And, sure enough, I did. But yeah, that is what you call motivation.
Yeah.
And when you are married and you have kids, you have buy-in. You have made a commitment.
Yeah.
And if you're just, ladies, I'll speak mostly to you, if some guys suggest, oh, let's just move in together, there is no commitment there.
Yeah.
They can move out whenever they want. And so you need to refuse that and say, suck eggs, fella. Just get me a wedding ring or get lost. Yeah.
Play the Beyonce song.
Yeah. But that idea of committing, it has an effect on the male psyche.
Yeah. You know, I haven't thought through this for a while, but I used to struggle pretty consistently with motivation. And it's just like some weeks I'd just wake up inspired. Some weeks I would struggle to get out of bed. And it's been a while since I felt that way. So it feels good to be motivated, to just wake up and be like, yeah, I got to get some stuff done.
Right. Yeah, having a daughter will do that to you. Yeah. Well, hopefully this was helpful. Again, we didn't really talk about the specifics of having kids, but hopefully you got the impression that having kids is not a financially insurmountable problem, right? It is a blessing, and it's well worth the expense. And I can just tell you that the government statistics are wrong, because I did not make $2.5 million over the last, whatever it was, 35 years that I've been in existence.
There we go.
Yes. So having the proper spiritual perspective will alleviate a lot of that anxiety. But thanks to Ryan for interacting with me on this. We hope you found it helpful.
Yeah.